Alrighty, Old Roller Nation, welcome to the podcast. A good friend of mine, the artist for the show. The logo is designed by him. He's a friend of mine. We've known each other since we were 14. He has a master's degree in fine arts, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Welcome to the show, Eric. Eric Bolander, the mountain.
The mountain. More of the rolling hill.
Yeah. Well, I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones, you know.
Yeah, right.
So, but for the show, like a little bit of backstory, Eric and I have been friends, since we were 14. I met him when I transitioned schools in 9th grade, and he's been an artist, visual artist, and a music artist ever since. Professional the whole time, and always treated his art very professionally. And so when it came time to get a logo, he was the first place I went, not because you were my friend actually, but because I knew it was going to be solid. And then I sent you over just kind of like a couple of basic ideas of what I thought it might need to look like, and it was like an hour later.
Yeah. I think it was you and maybe your son or daughter's hand doing the
did the
hold.
double wrist lock, and then Kimura grip if you're a jiu-jitsu guy. Some of my catch wrestler friends will know what I was saying. But that logo, like I said, I just sent you a couple of little very brief ideas, and you came back with the logo super quick, and it was perfect, so just went with it. Money well spent on that front.
I'm glad you're happy with it for sure. Yeah, I just kind of came up with some ideas from just the photo. I was looking through some images, and then I was like, you know what, I'll just do a digital drawing over top of the actual photo you sent me, and then do the rest of the background and kind of the circular design with the text and all that.
Yeah.
But I just started really with a rough sketch with pencil, and then pulled your image up. I use Photoshop and Illustrator mostly, but I went from there and then did the digital drawing version of it.
Layered it up and turned it into something. I thought it was awesome.
Not knowing much about the sport you're involved in, I came from like football and things like that, more weightlifting and stuff like that. But so I definitely wanted that reference to be able to, do something nice.
This shirt, man.
The puking patch.
I got this shirt. I was at work and I had a really quick lunch break, and I was in a different town, and there was a jiu-jitsu school across the street from where I was doing training.
Yeah.
There was a jiu-jitsu school across the street. Well, I'm in my work clothes, right? So I can't go over to train. I look on the internet and they've got a lunchtime class. I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I ran across the street, went over to the Goodwill to grab some clothes so I could train in.
That was at the Goodwill?
Yes, I got this at the Goodwill.
Somebody gave that up.
I told my wife I was gonna be buried in this thing.
I don't blame you, man. It's a strong shirt.
Yeah. So I got a training in, and the teacher was awesome. We did half guard sweeps, which half guard's a big part of my game. So a lot of the stuff that I learned in that lesson, I still use to this day. So it was a great little training.
Worth the effort then.
Yeah, and plus I got this awesome shirt, which I would have never gotten that otherwise, because I was just at work. Couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about, to give you kind of a broad view of what the purpose of the podcast is I want to investigate ways of getting as good as possible, as fast as possible within the martial art of jiu-jitsu, or the sport of jiu-jitsu, depending upon how someone may define it, or any kind of grappling really, be that catch wrestling or sambo or judo, whatever. And then the second portion is maintaining that skill level for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a half-hearted joke that I want to roll dangerously into my 65th birthday party, right?
You're right.
So I want to be a badass on the mats as long as possible. And I don't feel at this point that I've achieved badassery. I have these little flashes every now and then.
Is that a technical term?
Yeah.
Badassery?
Yeah. And dangerosity. Between badassery and dangerosity, like that's the real aim of the show. But something that's really a big point is that it's a martial art, but it's also a martial skill. and within art, you've given me a lot of perspective about art that I didn't have.
Sure.
And so I wanted to get your perspective on skill acquisition, because while you don't do martial arts, you have done a lot of sports, and you coach sports for a long
football
time. Yeah,
and
for a
weight
long
training.
time. So there is a an athletic element to both your training and your teaching, but I wanted to talk to you more on the art side.
Sure.
To get your ideas about, because we all know somebody that we think has, and you really gave me this perspective, because I bought into this. We all think that people who are artists have this God-given gift or something, and you were like, there is no such thing.
Sure.
There might be people who are a little precocious, meaning that among people who are completely inexperienced, they look a little bit better, but there's no such thing as like a Da Vinci day one.
Yeah, there's levels. There's definitely levels of, lack of a better term, natural talent or gift.
Sure.
But there's my whole theme, thinking about kind of our conversation for this, is repetition. And it's even like in football, and I worked mostly with offense, defensive linemen, and then I was a head freshman coach, so I kind of did all the offense and defense as well. But just if you think of skill set,
raw kids.
Yeah, totally. So when you're really digging in, repetition is more important than the quantity of what they learn. So the whole adage of quality over quantity, that goes with repetition too, because if I get really good 100 really good reps from a certain pass set, a deep pass set for my left tackle, if I get 100 great reps from the one step we worked on out of 5, that's better than 20% reps.
Sure.
That's better for me, because I have confidence in that kid. And moving to like teaching art and drawing, they're perishable skills. Even the kid that from second grade on, you're like, oh my God, they draw so well. I think that's more natural aptitude than talent, perhaps.
So how do you define that?
I would say some of us, or all of us, have possibly a higher aptitude to succeed at proficient and above proficient at certain things. But I think in general, most people have above average potential. For example, if I teach drawing, I could take a kid that's a freshman or sophomore in high school that hasn't done art since elementary school, and take them from August to May, and by May they're going to be above average. And they may not be proficient. They may not be at certain skill set, like observational drawing, just sitting something in front of you and drawing it. But because of repetition of these certain skill sets we work on, they're going to be above average. And I think that was important, especially like in athletics, where you have a certain amount of reps in this skill, and this skill. And instead of spreading it out, you can read about and watch videos and maybe roll or practice with someone who has these 3 or 4 different things you've never done before. That's great. But in your own training, repetition is, in my opinion, is the most important to achieve proficiency at anything. So if I'm trying to learn how to draw a hand, I need to draw that hand. I need to sit and look at it. I need to study it. I need to be able to see how it is, and I need to do that 10 minutes a day every day. And if I did that for 2 years, where would I be versus taking a class for a couple hours a week for like a month?
So you're looking at it as an investment in time, not
100%.
An individual, like, today I'm going to draw a hand and it may come out good, it may not come out good.
Then I'm not going to do it for another 6 months.
Right. You're saying in 2 years I'm going to be pretty darn good at drawing hands.
Exactly.
But it's going to require me to.
Man, I use this with my students, and I always use it with my football players. When I have a kid that's above average talent, when I get them, they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and I just ask them, do you think LeBron James shoots free throws every day? And if you answer no, you're not paying attention. Or name any like famous artist, any famous athlete that are really, really, really great at what they do, and they've excelled. Of quicker than anyone you've ever known.
By the way, Michael Jordan way better than LeBron James.
100%.
Just
100%.
I mean,
But he's not playing still, so that was my reference. You know, I'm dealing with teenagers.
I think he's
Some
still
of them may
on
not
the
have really
roster.
been tied into it.
Because
But you see what I'm saying? And,
I do.
And I mean, I've shared the Michael Jordan story with kids too, because you think about that kid that didn't make, was it the sophomore team? He didn't make it. He got cut.
Mhm.
And he didn't quit.
Yep.
You know, that happens to kids every day, and they're like, maybe it's not for me. And maybe it's not for them. And that's fine. But if it is for you and it's your passion, you really want to get better at it, the work ethic supersedes anything.
You know, something that you said about repetition and kind of like that early talent or precocity. My own observation is that, just like you said, we know that kid who from second grade, we just knew he could draw. He had
Sure.
an art skill, or maybe it was a she. There
Yeah.
are also female artists,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
but they start doing art, early on, and it looks pretty okay, especially for a second grader. There's no such thing as a great second grade artist. It just doesn't exist.
Or the opposite. They're all great.
Yeah, that too.
From the art teacher perspective.
Yeah.
You know.
But what I'm saying is that there's a little bit of a self-reinforcing wave when someone, including maybe just themselves, recognizes that, hey, like this is actually pretty okay. So then you're incentivized the next day to draw something,
Mm-hmm.
and then that one's pretty okay. So then the next day, and this like I said, sort of self-reinforcing motivation comes where you're not drawing to get better, you're drawing because it's a pleasure. But through the repetition that comes from just the fact that it was enjoyable,
Yeah.
you find yourself getting better.
Well, I mean, kind of along those lines, yes, I agree. But also there's the idea that doing it for fun and just the repetition in and of itself, you're going to show some growth, but with something like what you're doing and what training with what you're trying to do, intentional repetition
Oh yeah,
and correct
Mhm.
intentional repetition. I did weight training with my kids too, and learning proper, which of course, I'm out of shape and haven't lifted in forever, but having people with really good form coming in
Which
and
just-
showing kids.
Just for the record, because I've known him forever, I'll make fun of you for being kind of a tub of lard, but you're one of my best friends, so I'll bust your balls. Eric was injured in the Army. He was serving our country. I always thank him for his service. I haven't done that yet for the show.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Freedom is a fucking awesome deal.
Fair enough. Hey, I
So-
never went to combat overseas, but I did a lot of stuff here.
Man, you stood
here in
guard,
home
ready to
country,
go.
So I was ready. Yeah.
And you did a lot of awesome things, especially with disaster relief. And so to pretend that you didn't serve your country would be
Fair enough.
And me specifically,
Fair
I'm
enough.
very proud of what you've done. So the injuries have made it hard for you to train.
Yeah, and the laziness.
Yeah, well,
I keep myself stupid busy. I'm a touring musician, a teacher, a
Yeah.
father, so I do keep myself stupid busy. I need to work on that. But outside of that, I have had, training in different types of fitness over my life for sure, through military and football.
yeah,
So I can relate to a lot of different training regimens, even though I'm not a healthy specimen or an athlete. You know what I'm saying?
well,
So I like being involved and connecting with some of that.
yeah. It's just like
Stuff, too.
Michael Jordan. It's like Michael Jordan right now is not an NBA caliber basketball player, but Michael Jordan is still Michael Jordan.
Yeah, he's
you
still
know?
Michael. It's
Yeah.
true.
So
But yeah, I mean, but back to like kind of what we were talking about with the, learning a skill set of whatever, and those perishable skills isn't. I think people confuse perishable skills with forgetting something. Like you never forget how to ride a bike kind of concept.
Mhm.
Perishable skills really isn't that you forgot how to do it. It's just that you haven't worked and maintained the level of proficiency of that skill set that you've obtained. So if you're not doing a certain move correctly, or if endurance and cardio is like a goal to working toward say a fight, and then you slack off from that for 5 days, well, now you're 5 days behind and you don't have 5 more extra days in the calendar. So that repetition is going to maintain and improve whatever skill set you're working on.
Yeah.
And that's
And
been a
whereas-
big improvement for anything like my visual arts, music. I'm not the greatest guitar player, but I'm way better than I was 5 years ago.
Certainly. uh, and even your songwriting has grown so much.
Yeah, and that's the same thing as you
Which,
pick
by the
up
way,
things from other people.
Eric Bolander is a very famous
Famous
traditional artist,
really
traditional
tiny circle.
musician. If you follow a very obscure brand of like hipster art rock,
There you go.
then
That's me. Nickelback covers. That's all we do.
we
Nickelback covers.
got to get you a set of skinny jeans and one of those round
Yeah.
fedoras.
Yeah. Well, as big as my legs are, I think every pair of jeans I have are skinny jeans.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But back to kind of the skill set thing. I've said it 15 times already. It's that intentional repetition of, hey, I learned this new skill set that I'm going to add into my regiment.
Mm-hmm.
Say for training, people out there training. Well, okay, add that to your regiment and be intentional.
Yeah.
If you're doing 90-minute session in a gym, if you have an itinerary, that new thing has to have a slot somewhere.
Yeah.
And that new thing slot needs to be, depending on how it is with physical fitness, of course, maybe not daily, but nonetheless, it's routine.
Yeah.
The routine may not be daily, but there's a routine added to whatever you're trying to learn and improve on.
Well, then to take that and put it in a jiu-jitsu kind of globe or context, jiu-jitsu is a global fighting art.
True.
So there's standing, there's standing apart, standing clinch, some form of takedown, protection on the bottom, aggression and protection on the top. There's a whole list of things that you have to be good at.
Yeah.
In order to be good at jiu-jitsu. You can't just do a really good takedown and say I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. It's
Sure.
like, well, if that guy gets back up, if you do a great takedown and you dump them on their head,
Yeah,
they probably ain't getting back
They
up.
don't get up, and maybe you are good at it.
But if they do, you got to have an answer.
Yeah.
So, each of those individual domains has a set of perishable skills within it
Sure. Yeah.
that have to be practiced and refined. And in the beginning, because you're so terrible when you start, there's very few people that are precocious. Very, very few. Most of us just get clobbered right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I am the one, like, of all the people that got their ass kicked, I'm the one that got his ass kicked the most. Like, I'm not joking when I say that I am the worst guy that ever came into my teacher's class in the history of his class. I remember him looking.
I'm sure he won't say that.
Nah, he would.
Yeah.
He's nice, but he's like, yeah, you were special.
Yeah, yeah.
You're unique.
Hey, man.
I mean,
Commend you for sticking with it, though.
Give
a
an
lot of people
example.
won't. A lot of people won't stick with something.
This is something that he said, and this happened more than once. If he wanted me to take my right hand and move it across my body to the left, he'd look at me and he'd go, now, Harrison, you take your left hand and you move it to the right. And I go,
You're like, wait a minute.
I did the right thing, but wrong. And it
Yeah,
worked because he
yeah.
told me backwards so that I could do it.
He learned
And then
your
he'd
mistakes.
He'd
and
just go like.
That's pretty great.
So, I remember thinking this guy hates me. Like, there's just no way he doesn't
You
hate
probably
me.
taught him a lot, to be honest.
I don't think.
Not in the realm of jiu-jitsu,
I might have
but
taught.
in the realm of teaching in general.
Yeah, I might have taught him how to teach like a real rough student.
Hey, I've done 14 years of high school, man. So drawing, computer, like graphic design and photography and AP
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you pick up some tricks over the years of just dealing with certain types of students.
I'm definitely the guy that'll make you a good instructor.
Yeah. I had a student once. I asked him if he knew what an aneurysm was, and he said, "I don't." He said, "No, but my mom and dad calls me one all the time." He stole my thunder. I was going, so he was a super sweet kid, and like we joked with one another and had a good
Yeah.
rapport. I was going to basically be like, you're giving me an aneurysm. You stole my thunder. I was like, oh my god. I emailed his mom, and she really thought that was hilarious. I was like, well,
My favorite one.
you never know.
My favorite saying like that, I got from a hick, like a real hick, and I say hick lovingly. I'm a hillbilly. I'm allowed to
Yeah.
say hick.
Urban hillbilly right here.
He was from Mississippi. I'm not gonna say his name. Funny guy. This guy, if there ever was a captain that had your back, this was him. One time after we landed, I had forgot to do some part of my checklist, and I was the first officer, so I had to go out and do the walk around. And some other captain came over to tell me that I had forgotten this item. It was like turning a light switch off or something really minor.
Yeah.
This other cat that comes over, well, he sees this and gets out of the airplane to intercept it. He's like, "What are you doing? You're not here to talk to my first officer."
Yeah.
But what he would say is, if like sometimes, because I went to college, I would whip out,
I know you guys are shocked, so let's give a moment.
I didn't.
Let everybody soak it in.
I didn't graduate, but I would use a large word, and he'd be like, "Son, I don't know what the hell that meant, so I just take it as disrespect."
That's fair. That's fair.
So
I've heard that before too.
I've used that ever since. Oh man. But he, when we were talking about, like the skill acquisition and learning, there are some people who do get it quickly. I have a training partner who my instructor can demonstrate something, and he can do that move live while you're trying to stop him. Like in a full-on sparring session, he can then repeat that thing that he's never done before. I could never do that.
Hey, listen, any type of athletics and physical fitness is not separate from education and teaching styles and learning styles. Even if it's hands-on physical thing you're doing, there's still people that learn that type of thing differently. So sometimes, you're not going to get it by just watching. Growing up with my dad being a carpenter, those are the types of things I learned quicker. How to drill and like measure and cut and like physically piece things together, which in a weird way I think indirectly influenced me into becoming an artist. But
yeah, see,
I learned that way better than reading passages.
My dad was a mechanic, and that influenced me to get the fuck out of anything. I was like, no way. So many times I busted.
Also influenced. Dad worked construction. It influenced me to make sure I went to college.
I busted so many knuckles with Dad, and this is an absolutely true story. My dad's a very religious man. He was very against cussing, unless you had a hammer or a wrench in your hand.
Fair. I think that's fair.
If you was working, you could cuss.
I think it's fair.
I'd be 12 years old, I'd bust a knuckle.
Letting the demons out.
I'd be like, fuck! And he'd be like,
all right.
Hey, you all right? And then I'd be like, I'll make it. He goes,
I've worked on cars long enough, like my own stuff, to know that that's something that's very admirable, and I would never do it for a living. Those people, men and women that do that for a living, are great.
I got a friend named Chad who's amazing. Like, he's an ASC certified mechanic of all the foreign, like the like the supercars and stuff. Now that didn't happen all at once. He started as a mechanical engineer and then just fell in love with cars, and so
that's cool. My buddy Mike has been a Volkswagen mechanic in Louisville for 30 years, I think. Yeah. He's done it for a long time.
But yeah, busting all them knuckles, like I learned that was just not. I was not made for that. That was not fun.
But back to this is our normal conversation.
Sorry to digress.
But yeah, the
just two dicks.
The different teaching. Maybe it's below the camera. I don't know if they can see that or not. It might be. Put this on a couple different places, and
we'll make some real money.
Yeah. There's probably somebody out there would want to
subscribe to our OnlyFans.
There you go. FarmersOnly.com.
Farmers and mechanics.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so different teaching styles that you learn over the years, and obviously from school, but also from being around other teachers and people, and then you learn about students who have different learning styles, and it's not one, like it's just like right left brain stuff, like everybody's got a mixture of something, so you figure out or you learn how to present something, a skill or an idea, multiple ways. You don't just show it in one way and I expect you in a week to know how to do this.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm gonna show you in this way, like maybe demoing on a large screen. We're doing 1 point perspective today, and we're going to learn what that means.
Yeah.
And I'm drawing the demo, and we're following along. Well, I can't just do that and then be done. And then day 2, we're moving on to this next thing, the practice portion. I can't just leave out of, say, 25, 30 kids, the 3 that maybe just couldn't get it. They couldn't keep up. Outside of the kid, maybe just one paying attention. But other, that's a whole different, that's a behavioral thing that you deal with.
Sure.
But just actually the kid that's really struggling and is putting in the effort, that might be something where I'm sitting down next to them and we're trading back and forth, and I'm drawing, like there's converging lines and the verticals and the horizon line, the vanishing point, and whatever we're doing, whatever we're trying to figure out, and they're struggling with, show them that. I mean, I'll have high schoolers that have never learned how to read a ruler, and we're maybe plotting points for a project or something. So I have to show, what a half and quarter and eighth inch. My dad's rolling in his grave every time I do it, but I have to do it every year because there's a handful of kids, and it's not their fault. It's not like they're unintelligent. It's just that's not something they learn.
Right.
So back to the different learning styles, you stagger that. You stagger kind of how you present something. So, with training, some people may not get it a certain way, and it might take, some folks watching videos on this certain move and looking at some diagrams of actually step by step to where it clicks for them.
Yeah.
For me, I was always a very slow reader, very slow. So my ACT, my reading comprehension was not great because I was timed. But if I have all day long to read a book, I tend to skim. Get in the house. They found us. Wait for that to pass by.
That's the curfew helicopter for the COVID-19 quarantine.
Oh God.
They think we're fucking.
This is 6 feet, by the way. It looks per two middle-aged white guys. This is 6 feet.
You had to make it racial. Wait.
I did.
At what point did that ever have to come up?
I don't know. But
I was gonna make it like an Antifa joke or something.
I was making a 6 inches joke versus 6 feet joke.
That's not funny.
Anyway, I thought it was funny. Comment whenever you're watching this if you thought that was funny.
Yeah, subscribe.
Subscribe.
If you want more dumb shit
more like this.
Sorry to waste your time, but
anyway, certain things click differently for certain types of learners, and over the years, as an educator, I've picked up on that too. So, learning yourself, what type of learning helps you sort of grasp a new concept, new skill for our conversation. The quicker you can learn that about yourself, the more, the easier your communication with your instructor can be too. Be like, hey, this helps me, or hey, if I take it, count off one step at a time, with a sound that helps me. For example, with offensive linemen, when you're learning steps. You learn one step at a time. If we're doing pass set, we're doing zone blocking. We'll go on the whistle, each sound. You have to stop, pose, stop, pose, stop, pose, and we'll do that for 30 minutes. And kids are sweating, they're sore, they're stuck in a position, and they're just getting aggravated. Like, oh, why are we doing that? I'd be like, well, by the time we do this for 3 months, this will be second nature. You'll have retained it and learned how to do it to proficiency so well that it's not something we do this long every day. This will be a 3-minute exercise,
right?
Versus we're working on it for 30 minutes.
Building a movement foundation.
You're building a movement foundation. So some people, like you said, might see the movement, turn around and do it 90% accurate, and then some people might have to do that step by step by step, 3 days worth of that just to get that one skill set.
Yeah.
And I think the quicker a person learns that about themselves, the quicker they can communicate it. Be like, hey, listen, I really need, whenever we do a new thing, a new step or whatever, I need to do it step by step before we get into the actual practice portion.
I got really lucky there. I was most certainly not getting it, and I had help from 2 major people. One was a brown belt in class named Jamal Muhammad. He pronounces it Jamel, but it's spelled Jamal. He's a really great guy.
You should probably call him Jamel if that's how you pronounce
Nah, fuck him.
That's fair.
But he was a super nice guy, and he actually gave me some private lessons, and the question was not, how can we get you to do jiu-jitsu well? It was, and this was my question, not his. It was like, hey, is this a thing that I can do? Because I'm not sure if it is. And his answer was, not sure either, but let's work on it.
Fair.
Let's give it a chance. And then my instructor, Mike, the head instructor of class, I asked him, what do I need to do to have a chance to get better at this? And he said, most people don't get it in one pass. He's like, I open the gym an hour before class for people to come in and practice on their own if you want to.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory. He's like, but the gym is open. You can't use my not being, the facility not being here as an excuse to not get better.
Yeah.
So, initially I thought, okay, I'll come in, for a couple minutes and, warm up before class, whatever. And then, so that would be like 15 minutes. And I would get there, and when I would show up, here's this guy who's like the baddest dude, just terrifying, kind of a wizard on the mat. And every day, when I come in, he's already in there practicing by himself.
Yeah.
He's so good that I can't imagine that he would have to do that, right?
That's why he was so good.
Yeah, but he is every single day.
That
hour is his hour, and he's so I'd come in and it'd be 15 minutes, he'd be there. So then I'd come back and it'd be 20 minutes just to see, can I beat him? No, never once. So finally, I figured out his work schedule. So I would show up and be in the parking lot.
Oh, hey, good. That's funny seeing you. Yeah, we might as well go work together.
Yeah, who's the lazy guy now? So, but that time, first off, for my age, I found that the warm up in class was good, but it was really hard to get my joints really going good.
Yeah.
But if I had an hour of practicing at a light level,
and you had a background in powerlifting,
right? So
I think that's definitely
it was not great for my
notable.
Shoulders. It wasn't great for my shoulders. So it took a long time to train my body to work correctly after powerlifting, because powerlifting is all
it's a totally different game.
You fight rotation, because any rotation is considered a power loss, and all you want if you're bench pressing is for the weight of the implement to go through your hands into the bench, and then the power of your body to go from the bench through the implement. So if there's any rotation, that's a loss of power.
Yeah.
Well, grappling is almost all rotation.
Yeah.
So it took a long time for me to reteach my body how to move correctly. But that hour gave me a chance to analyze and think. And so, like, the first problem that I had, the first major problem, was like just getting stuck in mount. My instructor would be just sitting on my chest, his body coming straight through my I couldn't breathe. I was getting claustrophobic. I was starting to see through freaking coffee straws. Like, I was having full on, not a panic attack, but like a fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Like, your brain feels like it's in a fight. You can consciously say, that guy's not fighting me. But good luck teaching your brain that, because when someone's smashing you, your brain is like, fuck, I am getting smashed.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm going to die.
It felt like it 100% felt like you're dying. And so I would have these panic attacks and just like flailing and doing dumb shit, and I was like, man, I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah.
So that first problem, the way that I solved it, and my instructor was very kind about it. He was like, look, man, you got a problem with mount. I can feel it. Like, I can tell that you have a problem with it. He's like, unfortunately, what that means is that I got to put you in mount a lot.
Yeah, it means you need to do more.
I'm not doing that to be mean.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because we've got to get you out of that response that you're currently in, so that you can find a way to have a technical response. So for that hour, I would practice mount escapes. We have our first mount escape is it's called a hip bump, and that's basically trying to get back to like a butterfly guard.
I think you were showing me that, like, when we were all hanging out last year and that weekend.
And the reason that we always show that first is just to show the power.
Hey, this is something you can do.
Yeah, because even though in the mount you have the person on top has almost every advantage, every conceivable advantage, there's one advantage that the person on the bottom has, and that is that the person on top, by virtue of them being on top, their center of gravity is above you, and you can manipulate it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, and if you mess up, it's if they get up to here, then you can't manipulate it anymore, and you got to really, really scramble. You're really in trouble. But you do have something, and you have something to work with. But you can't do that work if your brain is scrambling, like if you're in a complete fight or flight, lost in space scenario, and I was. So I would spend that hour just practicing mount escapes.
I mean,
Took about 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, I could sort of escape mount.
yeah,
You know, and then it's just been this process of adding to that. You know, like so just from each you're just adding a little piece. Like I drilled those mount escapes, got okay, had to keep drilling them to get better. You know, I think escaping the mount is now one of the things that within my sort of jiu-jitsu acumen that I feel the most confident in, which is not to say that there aren't people whose mount is so good that I couldn't get out, because there certainly are. But in general, even just from a response standpoint, if I get put in the mount position on the bottom, there's no panic. I'm just like, well, you know, these are my list of technical responses.
Game plan.
I got to move. You know?
I mean, that repetition, you know,
and the first
doing that early on, I think, and plus confidence comes with repetition. Like even like for example, like I mean, I know I go back and forth with all the different things I do, but I've been a musician, like, and you've played live music. You're a guitar player and you played in bands and stuff, but playing so many bars and venues across, like, I think I've played in like 15 different states at this point, something like that.
Yep.
I have zero issues with jumping in and figuring out. You know, early on, you know, maybe I wasn't really nervous, so to speak, but you know, lack of confidence of, okay, do I got all the right gear I need? Am I, you know, and now it's just it's a routine thing. I've done so many different types of venues and ran into so many different types of issues that I've had to troubleshoot on the fly.
Yeah.
Now it becomes so much second nature.
Yeah.
And that's contributed to any kind of training, you know, to where like you've got confidence because of all the repetition. This feels normal now. This feels just second nature. This feels like a reaction that is normal to me, that I'm not thinking through and have to, like, you know,
it's closer to
constantly revert to like what I was working on yesterday in class. Now it's something that, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. It's closer to muscle memory and like
and I'm sure with
confidence.
jiu-jitsu, especially being on the ground, like, you can't sit there and think about it. You know, you're gonna be in bad shape if you think more than, you know, half a minute.
Well,
you really got to figure out what you're going to do pretty quick, I would imagine.
I would agree with you. There are definitely some positions where you have to move. I would say we don't necessarily try to move quickly. We try to move deliberately.
Yeah, so, deliberate's a better word.
Yeah,
deliberate's a better word.
But you can't fart around if someone, like, let's say
mentally you're going to know that fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Kind of what's my next thing.
Right. Your body will fall into the motion. Like if I were to find myself in a fight and someone, you know, God help me, pushed me down and just fell into a mount position, because I practiced that so much, I am quite confident that unless I just got clobbered on the way down, that there would be an innate response to begin escaping mount and, you know, coming to a top position and holding that person in a way that I'm safe. But that, you know, just like you said, that can only come through repetition. But it also, this is the other, like, the self-defense element of jiu-jitsu, is you're never comfortable being uncomfortable, but you're confident that you can get out of it. Right? Like one of the things that Coach Joel Bain, who's a catch wrestling coach, said is, I don't want you comfortable on your back. I want you competent off your back. Meaning that if you get in that worst case scenario and, you know, the person has beaten you and you're on the ground on your back and, you know, you're fighting off the ground, I want you to know that you're good at doing that.
Yeah. You know? I'll tell you, like, training, like, with weapons in the military, and like in the Army National Guard, and training like close quarters marksmanship and stuff, we had a saying that, and I'm probably gonna screw it up, man. It was years ago, but it was something along the lines of, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Sure.
Slow yourself down in training, get it correct, get smooth with the actions, and then you can speed up how smooth you're doing it, and you become fast at the action you do, like quick reload, things like that, like being able to hold, you know, your weapon at the ready with your trigger hand and reload one-handed without even pulling it away from your face.
Right.
You know, that's first time you do it. This is nearly impossible. You drop a magazine, or you fumble, or you know, you fire off a round when you don't need to. You know, at a range, obviously. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that can go along with a lot of different things when you're doing sports and athletics, jiu-jitsu and things, training, like where, okay, I'm training, let me slow this down to where I'm smooth at it. Maybe not necessarily I'm real quick yet, but if I'm real quick at it and there's a couple things I could tweak and make better, if I back up and slow it back down and get smooth at this action. I mean, we did that for a lot of different things we did, to where we wanted to be smooth at it on the fly.
Yeah.
Make the decision smooth, because if I slow down and not try to hurry and fumble, and you know, I'm dropping things,
Right.
or I'm running, you know, like when people get nervous,
Right.
we all do that.
Yep.
So, and of course that's a different mindset altogether, but nonetheless, you know, if you get a little nervous or unsure about what to do, you might try to hurry up and then screw up your next move or something.
Have you ever heard or read the book On Combat by Colonel Grossman?
I've heard of it. I've never read it, but yeah, I have heard of it.
So it's a fascinating book. I can't remember exactly what caused him to write it, where he talked about it. There was a scenario where a few police officers were killed in a shootout with their hand in their pocket.
Yeah, sure.
And he wanted to analyze and try to figure out how could this happen, because this is a problem. You know, these people are putting themselves on the line, and they're defending us, whether you like cops or don't. You know, the good ones are certainly defending our freedoms and our liberties. And you know, there's some sort of an error in their training that's causing them to die with a hand in their pocket. Like, you know, that's not a place for it to be in a shootout. And it turned out that what it was is they would dump the empties out of their revolver, and rather than drop the empties on the floor and run the risk of getting like a reprimand for it,
yeah, they're collecting them and putting them.
They were putting them in their pocket.
Okay.
So 10,000 times doing that, here they are in a shootout.
So this was quite a while ago.
This was in the late 80s, I think.
Sure, yeah.
But it was bad muscle memory. And one of the things he said, and I believe this quote is ascribed to the book, it may be someone else, but it certainly is in the spirit of the book, is that in a true combative or life and death, we'll even say just a regular fight, we can't rise to the occasion. We like to think that we could. We want to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
But we can't. We can only fall back on three types of responses: instinctual, reflexive, or trained.
Yeah.
So an instinctual response might be just freaking out. You know, like that might, everyone's physical instinct might be a little different. Clearly in the mount, mine was freaking out. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So the next is reflexive. If I slap you, you'll probably, even if you didn't see it coming, do about the same thing anybody else would do. You'll wince. So that's the second type of response. And the third is the one where, you know, we can actually get somewhere, and that's a trained response through muscle memory. But it has to be trained correctly. Like, you can't, you know, put your empties in your pocket.
You know, military references are always something I fall back on, just because I was in the Guard for 10 years. Yeah. And all the different types of training we did. And one thing, you know, it's kind of Army-wide or military-wide, is you train as you fight. And I would take that, and I sort of changed that. And, you know, we practice like we play would be what I dealt, like, when I coached my players. Like, hey, we practice like we play. We don't run three-quarter. There's times during practice where we're running three-quarter speed. There's times when but if we're going to scrimmage or we're going to do a drill full on, we're going full on.
Right.
We're not going to get on the football field in the fourth quarter and revert back to our laziness during practice. And that's the same concept with the military, is train as you fight. We're going to have all our gear on. We're going to have, I don't care if we have blanks in the magazine. It doesn't matter. We're going to have everything we're on. We're going to do everything exactly how we would do it and expect. And you fall back on the highest level of training. And I even extend that to like students when they ask, why do we got fire drills? Be like, listen, they suck. They feel like they're useless. All we do is get up out of our chairs and we walk out. We shut and lock the door and we get outside away from the building. But we do it once a month. When there's a real fire in the middle of the cafeteria and the fire alarm goes off and you're not close to the smoke or fire, you're not going to think a thing of it. You're going to stand up, grab your backpack, and you're going to walk outside. Mm-hmm. Now, the people right next to it or in the middle of the fire, that might be a different reaction. I was like, but that's a smaller amount of the population that's in the building. I was like, that's why. It's repetition of, this is, you revert back to your highest level of training. That's the max that you can do. Mm-hmm. Most of us won't even revert back to the highest level. You'll revert back to some form of level, and the best you can do is the highest. And if that's hardly anything, you're going to revert back to that. Obviously, panic and some of the other things you mentioned.
Yeah, fumbling for your ammo and stuff.
Yeah, so within fighting and training and being an athlete, I see that being part of that as well. If you've trained something a certain way and it was incorrect, or you've been lazy about it, and then you turn around and you're actually training to fight somebody. If you're an MMA fighter or something, you're training for a fight, and you've put it off and not really trained to the best of your ability, then possibly when you get somewhere where you're panicking, you can't revert back to a high level because you didn't really train at a high level. So I think that transcends a lot of stuff. I like to think of the stuff I learned with playing football and in the military and being an artist and musician, like there's so many things that just go together, and there's so many parallels and so many crossovers. And I think that's why you're having me on the show.
100%.
Because I'm definitely not a jiu-jitsu guy. I don't know a whole lot about it.
A lot of people say that jiu-jitsu is everywhere.
Yeah.
And
meaning what? Like and like.
Okay, so take
just the ideas of it, or are you talking about?
So I'll give you an idea. This podcast, for example, I'm doing it because I want to learn the lessons of experts and see if I can reapply those lessons to what I do. Now, a lot of those experts are domain experts, so they're high-level jiu-jitsu coaches, right? And competitors and stuff. But jiu-jitsu as an art form or especially a sport is very young. Like competitive jiu-jitsu doesn't go back, 60 or 70 years. Compare that to wrestling, which was in the first Olympics.
Yeah, sure.
Compare that to the sprint. Like, give an example of ideal training. We have a pretty good idea what the template is for a great 100-meter dash sprinter.
Yeah.
We can, sports science can follow someone from 4 or 5 years old and know this person has a chance at being world class, and if we train them within these parameters, in the way world class people train, we could get them to that level. Now you take someone like Usain Bolt, he can do everything wrong. He has so much horsepower that he'd still be in the top 10% of all runners in the world.
Get right. I get what you're saying.
You can do everything right for me. I would never ever be able to shine that dude's shoes. I just don't have the genetics. No. But it's amazing, and I'm so happy that we have someone like Usain Bolt, right?
Yeah, correct.
But within sprinting, we know if we have, the kid from a very early age, basically just working up through and just past puberty, we can know this one has potential. Yeah. And if we train them the way that sprinters are supposed to train, we can build that person into, their max potential.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu doesn't necessarily have that. We're too young as a sport. There's actually a series where Lachlan Giles and the head of maybe it's the United Kingdom's Olympic Training Committee talking about athletic development for jiu-jitsu, and their contention is that it's not fully developed.
Don't you think though athleticism as a whole would benefit someone, say a high schooler that wants to get into jiu-jitsu, that's a wrestler / football player, has a step up from a kid that's maybe on the cross country team. Maybe there's a level of certain amount of of athleticism within different or just in different types of kids.
Sure.
Not body types. I'm saying a kid that's like
Yeah.
on the sports team or a kid that's not doing those things.
I think that could lead to some early success, but jiu-jitsu is so vast.
I'm saying training.
Yeah, no.
I'm saying early on, like getting
Any athletic training for anybody is going to be good. Like, you know, as far as like building an athletic base. Like,
yeah,
that's good.
That's my point.
If you just wanted to be like, you know, like my dad and be a mechanic. You know,
The reason why I bring it up is my next point is there's a lot of data and research showing multi-sport collegiate athletes are more successful at the one sport they're best at.
Right.
Even though, you know, for example, kids that are on the track team that also play football.
And
was it Urban Meyer, I think? I think he's the one
absolutely. He's been big on saying
was adamant that majority of his best skilled players play two sports. Amount of time and interest, obviously. I just feel like possibly maybe that gives maybe a notch to folks that are new to jiu-jitsu at a young age, say teenage age, but yet have a history with on the track team or something like that. It gives them an athleticism or an athletic base that they come in with, even though they have no idea what jiu-jitsu is.
So the Russian athlete development program, say it Sambo 70. Sambo is a martial art derivative of the folk style wrestling or folk wrestling in the I think it's the Aral Mountains or the Caucasus Mountains, and judo. So it's kind of a putting together of Russian traditional wrestling and Japanese judo. Really awesome martial art, beautiful. But they start with gymnastics. So their kids come in kindergarten, and you know they're going to Sambo 70, the school of, you know, like one of the biggest schools, Sambo schools in the world, and
just learning how to like tumble and stuff.
Absolutely.
Like that. Yeah.
It's movement in space and understanding of your body in 3 dimensions. And so there's multiple studies that have shown that like people who've done gymnastics can transfer to other sports much more quickly than people who have done other sports can transfer to different sports.
Yeah. I think track is also one that lends well to other
makes
sports.
Perfect sense.
Because of the endurance, the cardio, movement for any kind of thrower.
I would add wrestling to it because of the 3-dimensionality of wrestling.
Yeah, sure. Wrestling's. We had a lot of football players through the years that I coached that wrestled as well, and you could tell.
Yeah.
You could tell. I mean, you could tell if a kid had wrestled for just one season, and you could tell the next football season what that brought to their abilities.
My friend Jackson, who you know pretty well, he was a wrestler in high school.
Yeah.
And they invited him to play on the football team. He went to college, you know, at a Division I school on a football scholarship.
Yeah.
Because of his wrestling.
Yeah.
And I contend, based on what I know of him, he had a legitimate chance to make it to the NFL. He injured himself really bad, and so I don't think he would have been a draft pick, but I think he could have been undrafted
for
free
a few
agent
years or something. Yeah.
But that injury before he got on a team, like they basically told him, like he did a workout and stuff, and they're like, look, dude, we like everything you got, but with that injury, we can't clear the medical exams. If you were on the team, we could get you, you know, the surgery that you need, and you know, be good to go. But we can't. The liability for bringing you on with that injury is too much. So you know that was like the end of his chance for the NFL.
That makes sense. I mean, I've heard those stories.
But as a defensive end, like the grip fighting and you know the understanding of base and of getting under a guy, you know, like he wrestled, like he had this just like Jordan Burroughs-esque blast double leg.
Yeah.
And when he would tackle dudes, there's some videos of him tackling guys, and it just looked like, you know, their body would just collapse around his butt. It was amazing.
Man, there's a not misconception, just underlying understanding from general public, general sports fans of like who's the quickest on, like, say for example, football team. You think of, you know, the running back and wide receivers typically, and defensive backs. But in reality, the quickest from here to that camera would be your offensive lineman and your defensive lineman. And they're the biggest, you know, some of them are pudgy and all that. They're going to get from there to there quicker than just about anybody,
Sure.
or arguably as quick as someone who's running a 4 flat 40.
Yeah.
You got a guy weighing as much as me that can bench press 3 of me, but can take 3 steps backwards. And to think of like a left tackle, I say left tackle usually for a right arm quarterback is kind of a very pivotal offensive lineman, but just a tackle that's on the outside of the line facing a defensive end who is leaner, quicker, can run faster, all of it. They have to get back and protect the quarterback for at least like 4 seconds, 3-4 seconds. So for them to have to get backwards quicker than that guy's running from a sprint position, I think for people that don't really pay attention to it, like when you watch football again, start watching the edges of the line.
Yeah.
And when it's like 3rd and long and a pass play's coming, just watch that. Don't even look at the quarterback. Watch that for the first 3 seconds of the play, and it's phenomenal how quick those big boys can get. And as they're learning in high school, by the time they're seniors, man, it's fun to watch that kind of stuff. I kind of miss coaching just to watch watching kids develop.
Does that go to the power of repetition? Because they're doing the same motion
100%,
over and over and over.
dude. By the time they're seniors, hopefully the middle schools can work with them a tiny bit, but sometimes it's just hard to keep a team together,
Sure, oh yeah.
But like freshman year, I worked with those guys. I had freshman coach the last 3 years I coached, but I'd worked a lot with the freshman line anyway. And just the repetition of being able to kick slide and do all the different types of things you got to do to be that quick.
Right.
Because by the time kids are seniors in high school, man, I mean, they're already collegiate body types, some of them.
Yeah.
So, and, on a high school level, sometimes your defensive ends, they might be, a skill player on the offensive side. I mean, they might be a backup running back.
Yeah.
So you got kids that are out there that are just tough and quick. You're trying to get, to the backfield or trying to contain the edge. And, like, for example, we've had a guy that's went on and played college basketball, but he was a defensive end his freshman year. Or, excuse me, his senior year. His only year he played football. Just tall, lean, strong, real quick. So those kids, that repetition of learning those steps, and it's not, 100 different steps. It's a matter of learning a dozen different steps, but knowing which step and how to use it and what situation to do it.
Right.
And what types of plays you do it.
Internalizing it so you can improvise with
Yeah.
it.
So once you learn all that, now we got to learn how to use which steps when, and that's all in the play calling and your offensive sort of strategy.
So to swing it back around to the art side, because art is so, overwhelmingly large in terms of its possibilities.
Yeah, I think
Jiu-jitsu is that way too.
Yeah, I think with art, like speaking to the parallel, you really have to look at drawing and learning different materials. Those two things. So
describe that to somebody that knows dick about art.
Well, what I'm saying is like we can just talk about the concept of art and artist and style and popularity and we go down a rabbit hole that we don't need to be in for this conversation. Like this conversation is really about the skill sets that doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're learning it. It's a foundation and sort of the skeleton underneath of what you become as an artist. Because like you said, you can go all these different directions. So to put it in teaching art, teaching drawing is the backbone of every single visual arts you can possibly think of. Sculpture, architecture, all of it. Drawing is the backbone. So if I'm taking a kid from freshman year to senior years, I have some kids all the time with different art classes and they want to go into art or architecture or engineering or whatever. They need to learn how to see and learn how to represent what they see on paper. If I'm drawing the chain hanging off the roof here with the swing on it, I need to be able to accurately lay that down on paper, and I'm not going to do it right off. So learning the different skill sets within drawing creates the foundation for me becoming whatever type of artist I want to be. graphic design, same thing. With Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever other programs, learning those techniques of using, say, these 6 tools. Well, these 6 tools could be used in thousands of ways or thousands of techniques, but I need to at least get the base of how these tools function and why I'm using them before I design a logo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
now I need to figure out, once I build on those skills through the repetition of doing those, that's, you can even talk about work efficiency as a graphic artist and keyboard shortcuts within Adobe products. If you don't take time to learn those, you're not working more efficient. And it might sound silly, but me learning keyboard shortcuts to where I don't even look down at the keyboard half the time, and I'm going back and forth through these different tools, makes me more efficient as a graphic designer.
Right. If you're getting paid to do it, then
yes,
doing
recording studios
quickly.
for musicians, same way. If you're in a studio with an engineer that knows dick about Pro Tools, you're gonna be here a long time. If you got somebody that's a wizard, they'll have vocals comped and something you can listen to and like move and adjust within minutes. By the time you go to the bathroom, come back, like half the track's done. You're like, what? I didn't even,
right.
That efficiency within an athlete, a fighter, within their training becomes important too. If I'm wasting a lot of time and I'm in the gym for 3 hours and it could be 2 hours, that hour may not be home playing video games. It might be another. I might be studying, right? I might be
or just
discussing with someone else or muscle recovery.
Yeah.
Right. So if I become more efficient within my regiment of whatever it is, if it's drawing, if it's Photoshop, if it's I'm gaining more out of it too.
That goes back to the idea of being deliberate, like you're deliberate,
very much
intentional reps,
intentional.
Like, no. One of the jokes, and I got this from my buddy Paul, PH. He said, "Don't half-ass a bunch of things."
Yeah.
Whole ass one.
A whole ass one. There you go.
So it's like don't like whatever whatever it is that you're doing, do the shit out of that. So
in teaching, you probably know what I'm talking about, but there's something called scaffolding. It's where you know what a scaffold is, right?
I do, yeah. Framework.
My dad used to put them up, So you scaffold material as you're presenting things. So I might run through 3 to 5, say scaffold, right? 3 to 5 levels of learning of something, a certain skill or subject or whatever, this thing or lesson, right?
Yeah.
Well, the bottom part is going to be your entry level. That's where everybody is. I'm not even losing anybody yet. So as you scaffold and build, you reteach and bring everybody up. So it's kind of that concept to where you build on something through the repetition and add to it as you go. So now not only have I maybe closed in on proficiency for this one thing, I'm adding to that one thing each time I'm doing the repetition of this thing already, right?
Yeah, so you're going all the way back to the beginning each time. You're just repeating it more quickly than last time.
And scaffolding doesn't necessarily mean you're going back to the beginning every time, but you're definitely
reinforcing it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so you're building on one concept. So if you're in history class and you're learning about the causes of World War One, well, you might learn about a handful of countries that were part of the Allies, right?
Yeah.
And then as you dig deeper, you're going to learn more about the leaders of each one. And you're going to learn about their past and what brought them to where they're at, and so on and so forth.
In flight training, we talked about a lot about the concept of moving from the known to the unknown. So if you have 0 nuggets of any information about how to fly an airplane, it is really hard to get you the first one.
I would imagine.
But if you have 1, it's significantly easier to go to number 2 if it somehow connects to number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 is dramatically easier to teach than number 1.
Yeah, that's.
However, if I teach you 1 and then I try to teach you 2, but it's from somewhere over here and it doesn't connect, it's just as hard as it was over here. So we always try to like move in branches, so that you're continuously moving, as we said, from the known to the unknown. Um, and I definitely like what you were saying. It's really good to learn how you need to learn.
Yeah.
Within learning jujitsu, one skill that I had is going through flight training because it's so expensive. You can't afford to not learn quickly. You either learn quickly or you quit. You have no choice.
Yeah, I bet.
Like because the money runs out. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not quite like liberal arts school, you know. You're just building up.
yeah. No.
You know, this is literally what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. It's a thing where if you don't figure out quickly how to figure it out quickly, then
you're not going to land in the Hudson River.
You just ain't going to do it. And so one of the things that I really learned is that if I can just get that first nugget, just the first one.
Yeah, get it down.
I mean, if I can get past that and I can find another nugget that springs off of it, then I'm much better at getting this one. You know, like just give me the first. This you got to suffer. I'm good. I mean, my instructor would just look at me like, "Oh God."
Man, I'll tell you one thing we haven't brought up that I was wanting to bring up too. It goes along kind of what we were saying with getting that and then connecting with the thing is work ethic as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that gets lost on. It gets lost on people sometimes. You know, for example,
I think for this particular crowd, like my listeners, that may not be a problem
because
this is the thing that they care about.
But,
you know what I mean?
Hey, man, lazy people watch stuff they're interested in too.
Well,
you know, it's not the point, but
I can't say I'm not lazy.
Well, what I'm saying is like, you know, there's certain levels of work ethic that certain things demand. Like you have to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, someone can learn to draw as a hobby, and that can become an interesting thing that they do, and maybe a stress release. And, and they don't get really great at it, but they get better because they have done the repetition.
Yeah.
But without the intentional repetition, which calls for work ethic, it might not be, and maybe the passion's not there either. But you know, passion typically drives work ethic. But I know a lot of folks in the music industry, the visual art industry, that just, and then, you know, former players and people that I've worked with, that just lacked a really sort of internal drive to push their work ethic to what it needed to be. Mm-hmm. I've had kids who were really great and did really well at certain things, but they plateaued and they were happy with it and they wouldn't put forth the effort.
That's definitely what happened to me as a guitar player. I feel, based on, you know, the indicators that I had and, you know, how I developed, that I had the physical potential to be a professional guitar player. And what I mean by that is
touring music,
touring in a band, very much capable of playing on the stage with any band. Where I ran into trouble is that I got good enough that I could hear a whole lot of stuff, and then I couldn't improvise it, but I could certainly come back and compose it.
Sure. And
that sensation of knowing that I could reach out there to what my ear heard and bring it back somehow became good enough to me. You know, it's a real shame because I had so much more physical and within my ear potential that I didn't maximize just because I actually physically got satisfied at a certain spot.
And I think a lot of folks would identify that as a, you know, being content and a loss of interest in moving forward.
Yeah,
and that's not a slight. That just means, hey, that's where you stop, and that's where, that's okay.
I have that regret because I had the ability, but I also recognize that if I didn't love that enough to pursue it with like a, you know, with that dogged, you know, 7 or 8 hour a day intentional practice, love, then maybe that wasn't for me, and that's okay. You know, like it's okay that it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I think, you know, I've had students in the past that have left, you know, had me for 4 years and took like APR studio with me.
Yeah,
and were just some of the most dynamite artists, and you forget that they're 17 or 18,
Right.
and then
right.
they study agriculture, or they're really into wanted to work at like a national park, so they went into kind of the forestry or fish and wildlife and things like that, and you're just like, dang, and then you have to stop and be like, okay,
But that's still
I was
awesome.
their art teacher, so I
Yeah.
have to like back off this. I've had football players that were also in the marching band, and they went on to college to study music, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
At the same time, so you have to like, as their teacher and somewhat of a mentor, you have to pull yourself back and go, okay, well, this is what I would want for them.
Right.
And for me, music is my biggest passion. I love teaching. I love doing visual arts, but I don't do as much visual arts as I used to. I do a lot of graphic design stuff,
Yeah.
but also, music's my number one passion. Like writing it, creating it, touring, playing. I'm a part-time musician, but I played 100 shows last year.
Right.
Of course,
Yeah.
this year is going to be different with the pandemic
COVID,
and
yeah.
a lot of things getting canceled. But I've had my biggest compliment from like friends of mine in the music scene in this area have been they've noticed my work ethic, and I don't even see them, but every
Yeah.
so often at a show, and they just know I'm either on the road or I'm writing a song or I'm doing some radio thing, or I do it, and it's because I have the drive and work ethic for that thing. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I get wrapped up and upset with myself sometimes for not getting back into the gym, lifting weights. I love lifting weights, but that's not, my buddy Matthew's a huge jiu-jitsu guy. That's his passion, and he trains all the time. He'll train 5-6 times a week, no problem. That's what he does. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
That's his, and I admire that, but then I had to stop and think, and be like, I do that too. It's just not in the gym.
Yes.
And I had to think about, okay, sure, I need to get healthier, but also I think folks that attach that passion and work ethic to whatever it is, and for your viewers, if it's jiu-jitsu, do it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously they're doing it if they're watching your podcast too, because they're just trying to catch different perspectives from your guest and from you. But I think the biggest thing for me is just as a former coach and just someone who's a teacher in general, just my daily life, my wife as well, and we've got a daughter.
Yeah.
Just being that constant person who wants to encourage and motivate is damn, if it's your passion, dude, put the work ethic behind it. Don't
Right.
sit back, because especially in the music industry, it's almost a daily thing of feeling down and like I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why this person get signed with this group? Shit, I'm as good as them. You're confident about it, but then you're like, hold on, I'm pity party over here, right? I'm gonna work. Now I'm gonna work harder. I'm gonna bug the right people, or I'm gonna network with the right people. I'm gonna learn how to do this or that, and talk to the right people, and not burn those bridges that I've seen other people do, and it's hurt them. And I feel like that's what I would say to anybody, as sort of, not necessarily, I guess, a final thought, but just if it's a passion of yours, no matter who's better than you. I think you're a good example of that. Like you said, you weren't really great when you first started. You were just, looked around,
terrible.
You self-assessed and was like, God dang, I don't know if I'm ever going to get this. And you even have other people who were like, I don't know. But you stuck with it, and it's something that now I feel like you put yourself at a proficient level.
Yeah,
from what you're doing. At your level, you're proficient.
I'm pretty eighth grade, I would say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But you get what I'm saying, right?
No, I absolutely
at
do.
your abilities that you have,
Right.
with your limitations for whatever they are,
Yep.
you're proficient at that level. And I think, with a lot of things that have belts, at that level of that belt, if it's a brown belt, you're at that level, right?
Yeah.
And if you're proficient at that, within that level, then that's good. Like, you can keep driving and keep putting that work ethic to push the passion. Because I just get so frustrated, especially with social media, seeing some of my visual art and musician friends that are feeling and like projecting some of the feelings that I've had too. And in my mind, I'm like, damn, just put your feet down and go. Like, at least do that first. And like, keep going, and maybe I won't be like this in a couple of years. I don't know, but right now that's who I am. And
Well,
I
I
want to
think
be that way.
one of the things that jiu-jitsu, like we were saying before about how jiu-jitsu is everywhere,
Yeah.
one of the things that jiu-jitsu puts right in your face is that suffering is not the worst outcome. Okay? So, bottom out. I'm suffering, right? No question. Eventually, you learn how to suffer effectively, which means that you learn how to get out.
Yeah.
But every day that you come to the gym, somebody's going to make you suffer.
Yeah.
Leaving the gym and my shoulder feels like shit, and I got to go home and take, like a 25-minute Epsom salt bath to feel like a human being again.
Yeah.
You suffer, right?
Yeah. What is the old rollers podcast?
Well, what I'm saying is you could be 24 and have it. I got.
Yeah,
There's
true.
a guy that I work
yeah.
with, and he's 22, and he has aches and pains. You know what I mean? Because it's hard on your body. It asks a lot of your body.
Heck yeah.
But even more than that is the mental anguish. Just like you said, like, am I good enough? Like, every day you're getting your ass kicked by somebody.
Yeah.
Like, there's always, if you're not,
Man.
I mean, there's a guy named Kyle. It's either Boehm or Bame, depending upon how he pronounces it. And if I get that wrong, I don't know. He is a world beater. I mean, just a phenom of an athlete. And this past weekend, he got clobbered by Gordon Ryan. I mean, just clobbered, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, pretty much 95% of the other world-class competitors in the world, he could just, maim. And Gordon
5%.
Ryan maimed him. You know what I mean?
5%,
So it's always trying to make you suffer.
Yeah,
And you have to accept that suffering and just say, I'm just going to fucking suffer. And that's okay.
along those lines, just kind of made something pop up to me. He's thinking about either with athletics or music.
Because
or
is that
something.
guy going to ask the question, am I good enough?
Yeah,
the
right.
answer is yes.
Yes.
But he's still got his ass
yeah,
kicked. Like
100%.
it happens.
No, that's a great point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I was going to say is that you play or train or whatever it is you're doing with someone better than you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that always brings
fun.
you up, and you're constantly struggling. But yet then again you're like, well, this is making me better. Why do I want to be top dog the whole time? Why do I want to be better? And you see those people, they relish in. Who's the skinniest here? Let me go roll it.
yeah. And
And I'm sure you have that in jiu-jitsu, but you have that in a lot of different
that
things.
gets
You're like,
weeded out real
you
fast.
get kids in football be like, oh, I want to go one-on-one with him. You'd be like, dude, he weighs 50 pounds less than you.
Yeah.
No, how about this? How about I pick somebody 20 pounds bigger than you?
You're right.
Because you're going to get better for it. Like, I just feel like that's, in both bands that I'm in, I feel like I'm not the best musician.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that feeling because I'm elevated by the people that are playing in the band with me. I'm in a rock and roll band called Actress Shakedown.
To improve.
And gee whiz, it's a 4-piece band. I play rhythm and sing. I'm
Nice
the lead
plug.
singer. But oh yeah, okay, get the plug in there.
That's
But-
Alcatraz Shakedown.
Come on. But I mean, everybody in the band's better musicians than me, and I love that fact because it elevates me to really sing my ass off and come up with some cool vocal melodies that go along with what we're putting together.
Yeah.
And with my trio, which is just under my name, is my cello player and he plays bass, Seth, and Ben who plays drums. And Ben's a mutual friend of ours. And,
Yes.
he played marching band at Morehead State, and Seth studied orchestra and through high school and college. And I'm just sitting there like some urban hillbilly that has a guitar. It's kind of. But I love that. I relish in that because I know that the songs that I write are going to be presented in this just amazing way not because of me, because of the folks that I'm with, and that's making me better. And I think training with, like you said, you went in early, obviously training with somebody way better than you, and you're learning from that person.
Well, and a lot
Why
of it
wouldn't
is-
you want to do that?
A lot of it is just solo drilling. He was doing his drills, I was doing mine.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and these were days that really did accelerate my learning. Sometimes he would have something that he wanted to add to his game, and he would need a live uke and an uke is a practice partner that's not resistant. So
Okay.
That's a Japanese.
Oh, okay.
So he would want a live uke for the sake of practicing, and so I just told him, I was like, hey, whatever you're doing, that's what I'll practice. Like,
Yeah.
like you can just do it to me. I don't even have to get a rep in. If I can
Sure.
just feel what you're trying to do,
Hey.
that'll help me to understand what this shit's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I am not joking when I say that one little thing was probably the beginnings of me finding effectiveness, because it was only through
Extra. You did extra.
well, it's where other people could see it. I couldn't. I just could not, from a visual standpoint. There's no chance that I can make
Yeah.
sense of what that is. But if I feel you pressuring me in a certain way, or like, convincing my head to look this way so that I can't turn back into you, things
Yeah.
like that, if I can feel that, then I can replicate it. But
Yeah.
if I'm looking at it, I don't see it. There's something that Hickson Gracie, who most people consider him like the best jiu-jitsu guy ever. Marcelo Garcia says he's the best, so if he says he's the best, then he's the fucking best. Because Marcelo, in my opinion, is the best.
Right.
But he talks about a thing called invisible jiu-jitsu. To me, all jiu-jitsu is invisible. It's like,
Yeah, right.
I couldn't see anything. I would look at it and I'd just be like,
Staring at it.
that looks great. Like,
Hey, good job.
but if I could feel it, if I could have you do it to me correctly and know what that meant to me, like, okay, I'm really fucking stuck here because, you have my arm pinned, maybe you have my neck compromised a little bit, maybe, you're blocking my hip, different
Yeah.
things. Like, I feel your pressure here as opposed to over here. I can't see that visually. There's people who can look and they can see
Tell which way it's
they can
going.
see
Yeah.
force vectors.
I get that. Yeah.
I cannot do
Yeah.
that. Like,
You're seeing infrared.
it's like, what, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Someday, old rollers, I will be able to look at somebody do something and be able to make sense of it. But otherwise, I just have to feel my way through it because I don't
Man,
get it.
you coach football long enough. That makes a lot of sense to me.
You know what I'm talking about? I'm not going
Yeah.
to say his name, but he knows who he is. This kid, I taught him an ankle lock one day. One ankle lock, right? Just a simple, the most bare bones ankle lock that everybody knows it. I showed it to him before class in my drilling time because he had come in and he's like, hey, can you show me an ankle lock? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. This son of a bitch ankle locks me 5 times in a 5-minute roll. He's never seen it before. Not once.
Yeah. You showed him once.
I know about
Maybe
it.
maybe he was hustling you.
I've been. No, I wish that's what it was.
Yeah, right.
So, like, I'd been practicing, leg locks and stuff. I had good ankle lock defense. I could not stop this ankle lock that
Yeah.
I just showed. It was unstoppable. He did it from places you should not be able to do it from. He could
Yeah.
just sense how to do it. It's just.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. Like, you show me an ankle lock, it'll be 5 weeks before I ever catch, like, the lowliest female white belt with it, like
Yeah.
120 pounds, brand new. I might have a chance catching her with that.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Right.
There's a better chance of her catching me with
Right.
it.
Man, I don't know. Yeah. I'm definitely interested in learning more about jiu-jitsu. I just,
Well,
time wise, but
Yeah, and you're always welcome. That's
buddy
that's the
Matt's
thing.
invited me over several times.
Where does he train at?
One of the bigger ones here in town. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I don't.
It's a decently known gym
Yeah.
in Lexington, but if you said it, I can't.
We got Lexington Taekwondo and Jiu Jitsu, and then Four Seasons
I think it's 4 Seasons.
and Reaction.
4 Seasons sounds right.
Yeah. So I trained at Four Seasons for 4 years,
Yeah.
and now I train at Lexington Jiu Jitsu and Fitness.
Okay. I think you know Matt Sillenperry.
Oh, I know Cyllin Perry. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I've trained with
Yeah,
Cyllin Perry
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he knew you.
That son bitch.
I
Yeah.
teach with his wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a teacher as well.
Yeah, and Matt's a great guy. Like,
Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine, man.
he's one of the people actually. Like, when we were talking about people that took me under their wing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Initially, he was instrumental in me making sense of some stuff.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
because he
He's a
had
teacher.
Well, he had the patience to just
You know.
look at me and be like,
Hey,
it looks like that guy's not paying attention. But
Patience.
really, he is.
teachers,
He just
you,
don't fucking
you
get
gain
it.
that.
You know what I
don't
mean?
have it when you start. Everybody's like, oh, well, teachers are so patient. No. You that's a learned skill too.
Yeah, yeah,
But-
that's true.
But people that have you don't have the level of patience needed, but you have sort of an innate the word aptitude's the right word, but you're willing to put forth the effort as long as it takes to get to the level of patience you need.
Yeah.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
There's
Well-
people that teach for a couple of years. The 3 years of day one of year 4 is kind of like this magical number. If you're going to be a public school teacher, it's like there's plenty of people that leave a profession after 1, 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
Tons. It's like, and,
It's hard.
well, it's just it's just patience. It's you have to be able to build rapport and relationships to be effective. It doesn't matter what you're teaching. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're an algebra teacher or if you're a phys ed teacher or an art teacher. You have to be able to have to build certain rapport and connection with a variety of students.
Yeah, because you're
if you don't do that, you're really not doing much for them.
You're dealing with people who. So in my case, I knew what I needed to learn.
Yeah.
I maybe couldn't find it, but I knew what it was. You're dealing with people so young and so inexperienced in life that they're finding that. They don't know how they need to know stuff.
Yeah.
You know
Especially
what
at the high school level.
Yeah.
When you're a teenager, you think you know everything.
Right.
We all
and
did.
you got a bad attitude. Yeah. I mean,
everybody.
I'm 40. I'm still
We're all
working
there,
on that.
man.
you know?
And I think I think one thing that I feel like is a positive for me in the way I teach is I try not to forget that.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to get as an older teacher. The years you build the years up. You're so far removed from that generation. That you lose that a little bit. But we're goofy ass kids now, so I don't think we've ever lost us and our friends. Our group of friends that hung out, that stuck together all these years.
And the other thing, I got a 15-year-old daughter, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
My 15-year-old daughter will say some shit to me sometimes, and I'm just like, and then I look over in the mirror and I'm like, "You
Yep.
son of a bitch!
Yeah.
You did this!"
You gotta start getting mad at yourself.
Yeah, I'm like,
That'll be me one day.
you're looking directly in the mirror,
Yeah.
and it's the voice. I mean, and so there's times like my son, who's 8, hysterical little shit, right? Goofy as hell. Like,
Yeah.
you have one daughter. Daughters are much harder than sons because daughters are the sweetest, most amazing thing until
Yeah.
they're not.
Until.
And it is shocking. Like, this little person who was just like, they would come up to you and be like, "Daddy, I want a hug and a kiss," and you're just like, it's like the
Melts
best.
you, yeah.
I mean, your whole
Totally.
world. Yeah,
Totally.
like my 3-year-old today made my entire week.
Yeah.
She came up. I forget what I was doing, but she's just like, "Hey, Daddy, can I get a hug and a kiss?" And she was playing with her dolls or whatever.
Yeah.
She just quit
Just
playing
took
with
a
the
break.
dolls to come
Get a
over,
hug.
and then went
Hug
back.
break.
And I was like, "That's the most."
I think we all need to do that. I think
She's
adults
gonna,
need to do that.
she's gonna
Take a
go
hug break.
completely insane in about 12 years.
Yeah.
So I got to brace myself. But boys, they're always like this.
Yeah, right.
Boys are always just they're always up your
Just
ass. Like,
yeah.
they're just annoying all the time. But it really doesn't change. Like,
Yeah,
that-
we're still that.
yeah. So the same
That's
level of
pretty true
like
for-
being a
in
pain in
general,
the
I
ass
think.
that I was at 9.
Yeah.
Here I am at 40, the same pain in the ass. Like,
Yeah.
girls, it's eventually they come back, but like, I'm waiting for that.
You wait for that moment.
But it's amazing because there are times when I want to get mad at them, and then something will happen. I'll be like, "That is just word for word what I would have said at
Yeah.
your age." Like, if I was
Yeah.
in your shoes and you were in my shoes, you would be mad at me. Like,
Yeah.
this scenario would have played
Cyclical.
the exact same way.
It's just the cycle. Circle of life, I guess.
But the jujitsu in that, if we could, like, to talk about like this skill development, is that idea of intentionality and knowing what you need to learn. What is required for you to learn stuff?
Yeah.
For in the beginning, like, I came to it older, and I already had a really formative experience in flight school where I definitely, in the crucible of flight school, you either figure out what you need and then you get it for yourself,
Yeah.
or you get wash out. Like, that's your options. So coming into jiu-jitsu, I could come in as the worst guy, but with that one tiny skill that I had, which was I can find it. Like, I know what I need. I know how to find what I need. Unfortunately, a lot of what I need is like broad understanding. Like, I'm not somebody who can look at the details and build context. I need a broad understanding of the context, and then I can fill in the details.
Yeah, sure.
That's really hard in jiu-jitsu because it is so broad that, I mean,
Yeah,
who the
you
hell,
can't learn everything
who
first.
has a global understanding of jiu-jitsu, you know? Like,
Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah,
Like
Joe Rogan.
Marcelo Garcia. Joe Hogan. But like Marcelo Garcia, you know, is a master, and then, you know, like Roger Gracie maybe, but their games are somewhat small. They're just
Yeah.
unstoppable at them, you know. So for me, it was very hard to find that global understanding. I had to do a lot of studying for me to get from white belt to blue belt. Took so much exterior study. There's only 36 techniques in the curriculum. Like, if you could get good at those 30,
As far as the belt classes
right,
or whatever. Oh,
if you can be competent at those 36 techniques, where you can demonstrate them against a live opponent, you're a blue belt.
Okay.
That's not that big, right? You know, 6 times 6 is 36. So if you learn one a day for 6 weeks, you can take a day off, and, you know, in 6 weeks you should be a blue belt, right?
Yeah.
Well, that ain't how it played out for me. You know, so I had to see that whole global system in action.
What's an average amount of time from beginner to blue belt
So
for those 36 components?
it's different for different schools. So our school uses like
Okay.
36 techniques.
Oh, okay.
Alliance has a whole bunch, but they're all relative. So it's not like, you know, like
Yeah.
one might be a double leg takedown from wrestling, the other might be a single leg takedown. Whereas another school would say 2 takedowns. It could be any takedowns that you like. You just
Okay.
got to have 2 takedowns that
Sure.
you can do. So different schools have different standards of execution.
Okay.
Like some schools, you need to be able to not only demonstrate stuff against a live opponent, but you need to be able to explain what it is,
Yeah.
so that if you and I were here on a mat and you having never done jiu-jitsu, I could bring you to, you know, a level of proficiency. It would be a low level, but I could explain it to you in a way that we could work it out. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Other schools, you gotta maybe, you know, like compete in a tournament, or you gotta win a division. Let's say a white belt, you gotta win a tournament with your weight class before you can get a blue belt. So,
Okay.
so it's different for every school.
That's kind of interesting.
So some schools it might be like 6 months. Other schools it could be 2 or 3 years. You know,
Sure.
and there's no, we don't, just like I said, we're a young sport, we're a young.
Yeah. That's
we-
interesting
we
that it's
don't
not
have
a
a defined
universal
Absolutely.
criteria.
And some places it's even more nebulous. It could just be like you're a white belt, but you're starting to roll well or spar well with the blue belts, and actually kind of look okay with the purple belts. And then the purple belts start getting pissed off. It's like, we can't have this white belt challenging us, so you get a blue belt because
Oh,
you know what I mean.
okay.
So there's no actual
Called
standard there. It's
ego
just-
belt.
Yeah, but it's like you were demonstrating proficiency to a level
Sure,
where it's
yeah.
like, we can't keep you in this belt no more. You know, we gotta
Sure.
promote.
Yeah.
So it's different for every school.
Okay.
It took me just over 2 years to get a blue belt.
Yeah.
With
36 components, right? You
right,
said at your
yeah,
school.
yeah. There are people who definitely have gotten it faster.
Are you at the blue belt now?
No, I'm a purple belt now.
Purple.
So
Okay. I
it
thought
was-
you had
yeah.
something semi-recent.
Right, it was another 2 years to get to purple belt.
Yeah.
And to give an example, like
That's
have,
pretty cool accomplishment though, man. Like when the time and effort that you put into it.
I cried.
I bet, man.
I have not cried that hard over an accomplishment other than like having my kids or getting married.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
you know what
sure.
I mean? Like maybe getting married wasn't an accomplishment, but I knew that this was a pivotal moment. You know,
Yeah,
it was
sure.
a very emotional. Like
Yeah.
to say those vows. Like my dad is who married us.
Yeah.
You know, so this was a big deal. My dad cried.
Yeah.
I've seen my dad cry twice in my life,
Right.
and once was when I was getting married. So I cried. You know, it was like it's just,
Yeah.
so, but when my instructor strapped that purple, to me, a purple belt was like a god of war. If you came into a jiu-jitsu gym and you rolled with a purple belt, the first day, your brain is just like, it can't even perceive what
Yeah.
happened. Like they ran around you in such mind-boggling ways that your brain will not get it. It'll just say, I
Just
just
leave the gym, not sure what
the
happened.
only thing I know is that I got my shit pushed in, but I don't know how it happened.
It just happened.
Yeah, some 140-pound girl just fucking choke me 5 times.
Hey, man.
And it will happen.
That'll humble you.
Yeah.
When you feel like you got the upper hand regardless, and you're like, oh, no, wait. She's clearly highly trained.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
135-pound computer programmer with a purple belt on is a fucking dangerous machine. So to me, coming from a place of, I'm not sure I could do this at all. I know I'm not like a god of war, but I know to my white belt self,
you are.
I would.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if white belt me walked in and was like slap bump,
and that's that brings up another point I haven't thought of until just now. Is like coaching. I've always and drawing actually, both teaching and coaching those. I've said you're measuring your success and improvement on yourself yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get away from the athlete or the artistic kid that's been doing this all day every day since middle school. You're gonna look over and be like, and like the first week of drawing one, it's entry level. I've got freshman through senior. I've got kids that haven't had art since elementary. Then I've got kids that draw on their sketchbook or on their tablet 8 hours a day since they were 5 or whatever, you know? So, but they're a freshman and they have to take an entry level art class.
Yeah.
So here they are in drawing one next to a kid that doesn't feel like they can draw anything. And that's one of the first few things we do. We do these confident building exercises. We've got drawing on the right side of the brain is a book that Betty Edwards wrote, and she has a workbook with it, and we do some of the activities out of it. One of them's drawing upside down and covering up the image that you're copying. You actually put it over top and just slide down. You do a 1/4 inch at a time, and what it does is it takes away any guesswork, and you're just copying these little lines and shapes. You can't even really tell what it is. And then when you're done, you reveal it, and your version's pretty close. Even the kids that just aren't really
like me.
Fair enough. So and like my football players, like I'll have freshmen that would come out and never played football, and they're not going to be on the level of the kid that's played since they were in 4th grade,
right?
And maybe had a growth spurt early, and they're 200 pounds, and they're 14 years old,
and wrestled since 2nd grade
or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So I always try to like instill that idea of, and I try my best to reflect individually with my own art and music. Is this song I'm writing better than the song I wrote 3 years ago? If it's not, trash it. I'm not gonna finish it. So, and with training, are you better than you were a week ago? You're not better than the person you're trying to get this purple belt level, right? You're not at that level. But am I better than I was 2 years ago, or whatever?
Right.
Whatever marker you want to say for yourself, I think is really important to like hold those little celebrations for yourself. Absolutely. Even if it's not a sort of scheduled, so to speak, accomplishment or level. Like hold those small celebrations of like, hey man, I just did this and I didn't think I could do that. Like with the mount. When you were just like, I'll just lay here and die, I guess, to like, oh crap, I got out of one. Like that's a huge accomplishment, even
100%.
though at your level now you're like, it's not really that big a deal now.
But it was a huge
accomplishment.
Yeah.
So having those
finding those
little
victories.
celebrations. Yeah. And I used to not do that, man. I used to be, and it's the whole like, well, everybody's gonna get a participation medal. It's like, you get that attitude, especially where we grew up, man. And so for me, like trying to like think positively about the participation part of it is like, okay, yeah, this person or this person's got this acknowledgement on this website for this album or song, but hey, I got this write up with somebody, or I've got records in a record store in Holland. That's pretty cool. There's not very many of them, but that's kind of cool. Somebody reached out to order those from me to put in the like those little tiny celebrations of hey, that's not
and that's literally what gets you from belt to belt.
Shoo-wee, man. And I'm sure like within jiu-jitsu of like being in a building with people, like you said, when you're a white belt and you're looking at the purple belt, it's like, oh god,
it's you have to find the smallest victories. So I use this
Absolutely.
example a lot. Like, I had a partner named Jason, and Jason has a gift for the guillotine. Like, just if your head gets anywhere within a bent arm's reach, it's going to find its way
done.
into his armpit, and he's going to,
Yeah.
that's it. And
Is that kind of like the Stone Cold Stunner?
it could now the Stone Cold Stunner I think is like a blast double. I'm not up on my WWE, so if anybody watches that and I'm wrong, I don't want a lot of hate.
I'm just being facetious. Man. I'm sorry.
Now I don't know what that word meant, so I'll just take it
Fair
as
enough.
disrespect.
Good tie-in.
He would guillotine me like 10 times in a round. Like 5 minutes, I would get guillotined 10 straight times.
So aggravated, probably.
And I mean, it was terrible. It would happen so hard and so fast that I couldn't even perceive it. I would just know there's like slap, bump, oh, this sucks, tap.
Yeah.
Slap, bump, oh, tap. I couldn't even sense what was going on because I was in that same, like, coffee straw, like fight or flight thing. So I had to take my standard away from, like, can I submit Jason? Like, if I think it that way, I'm going to have to quit because there's no...
You lost the whole time.
Jason is at this moment a god of war.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it went from that standard to, okay, I just got submitted with the same guillotine 10 times in a round. Let's see if tomorrow I can come in and I can either
Eight.
well, maybe still 10, but maybe I make him take an arm bar instead of a guillotine. Like, I do some movement that makes the guillotine harder, so he has to flow to a second move.
Yeah.
Or, like you said, if I can make it 9.
Yeah.
And I got to go home excited that, like, I won today.
Yeah.
I got submitted 9 times, but that's a win for me because it wasn't 10.
It's tough to do that
and
within yourself. You know what I mean?
The other thing is the whole time, it's not like Jason was getting worse at guillotines, right?
Yeah.
He's getting a lot of reps.
Yeah, you're helping him get better.
So it's hard. You can't even measure yourself necessarily by, like, was I successful even by my own standard, because it's also possible that the other person, while you made a step forward, they made a step forward at the
Maybe
same
2
time.
steps.
Or, because they're...
It's like a sliding rule, I guess.
Right.
Just you kind of have to, like, be able to find the small victories within a realm of within what you're doing versus what maybe the other people are doing to you.
2 things that I found that worked for me were that, which was, like the tiniest victories.
Yeah.
And then the other was, if somebody submitted me, it would make me mad, and I would feel like I sucked.
You
It's
failed.
like, it's my yeah. So what I had to do was I had to switch my way of thinking. I had to reframe it to where it's like, it's not that I was bad, it's that you were good.
Yeah.
Okay. So even if someone does something that's like not jujitsu-y, like we'll call it just pure athleticism, not technique. Hey, athleticism is a technique, by the way. I would, if they would submit me, I would tap, and then instead of saying fuck, I would just say good job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that I'm happy that you tap me. I'm teaching my brain to not be mad at me. Like, I'm short circuiting this because
it's
if I keep going home every day,
sportsmanship too.
Well, fuck
to a
sport.
degree.
No. This is just
Forced sportsmanship.
that I could drive home not pissed off and quit. Because if I was fucking mad, like every single day going home, like fuck, I got tapped. Fuck. Because I felt
gonna
I suck at this. I'm not good at it. Why am I still doing it?
Yeah.
So if I just said, "Hey, your jiu-jitsu today was good," that doesn't hurt my feelings for some reason. Like I can say, like, "Hey, Bolander, that's a heavy set dude, but he moved pretty good. Caught me today.
Got me today.
Hurt my feelings, but
I'll
good
do
work,
tomorrow."
Tim. Fuck him, But I could just that simple reframe of, like, instead of being unhappy with me, I could just be happy for you.
Yeah.
Like you did a good job.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
It's hard. It's hard to do when you're doing the same thing.
I'm not trying to pretend that
I've worked on the same kind of idea,
but
like,
I had
in the music.
It was my only choice because it was either that or eventually quit.
I've done like pretty much the same kind of thing, as in terms of like because sometimes by the time you play, as long as I have you, you're working to get like the same show. Like you might want to jump on this, get the opening slot at this venue or whatever, and your buddy gets it. First thing I'm gonna do is message him and be like, "Hey man, I'm glad you got that show," and I mean it.
Yeah, it's truthful.
Versus, yeah.
It's not that it didn't hurt that you didn't get it.
Yeah.
But you can simultaneously have the feelings like, hey, I'm really happy for you.
But I'm gonna choose
Right.
to celebrate with you instead of just getting in that hole.
And that's hard. Like, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, it's combative.
Yeah.
You just kicked my ass.
Not only that, it's competitive too. I mean,
it's 100%.
especially if you're not just training, but you're also training for a fight. Like, it's
think
definitely
about the consequences of it, though.
Yeah.
You just choked me out, and I had to tap. Like, I didn't go to sleep. But
Yeah.
if I did, you could have choked me out. You could have killed me. You could have choked me out while I was unconscious, take my wallet, bang my girlfriend, whatever. Nothing I could do about it.
You're right.
Right? I mean, that's a huge consequence.
Yeah, fair enough.
So there's an emotional element to tapping that is difficult to accept.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense. I mean, you're literally giving up.
People who want
to a degree.
People who want to take martial arts typically have what you might call a little bit of an alpha dog mentality.
Yeah.
So how do you negotiate between this side of you that wants to be a bad son of a bitch,
yeah,
and the side of you that says, well, you're a bad son of a bitch today,
yeah,
and I can be happy for you that you are. That's not easy.
Yeah, yeah.
And it, like, I'm kind of a wimp, so it might have been easier for me than somebody who was like more like, I expect to kick ass.
Yeah, right.
Because I didn't expect to. I was like, I suck. And
Conor McGregor.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know that shit ain't easy.
Love that guy, man. Every time he runs his mouth, I'm just like,
he turned the UFC into the money what the WWE was supposed to be.
Yeah,
so, like,
yeah,
I get what
you're saying.
You know how it went even more cartoonish now than it used to be when we were kids?
Yeah.
Because, like, part of that is, like, they were probably going to get kicked
I don't know,
off the
man. It's pretty
networks.
cartoonish when we were kids.
I know, but it's even more so.
Hillbilly Jim, I mean, dude, that was pretty great. But.
All I'm saying is he took the elements of the WWE, like, he perfectly plays the heel role. He is funny. He is witty.
Yeah, the show,
right.
the entertainment part.
It doesn't hurt
outside the
that
fight.
He's also a bad son of a bitch.
Yeah, yeah.
But not the baddest. There are.
Sure,
he's been beat.
but I mean, he's
But he makes more money than anybody because he recognized that it's not just a competition.
Yeah,
it's a show.
He's capitalized on some things.
Yeah.
For the right reasons. I mean, you
absolutely.
do your thing.
I kind of think Chael Sonnen kind of led things in that direction a little bit, and then he took what Chael did and just like, explode. Even Chael was like, I like.
Man, I used to honestly really, really keep up with it years ago, like when Tank Abbott was fighting.
Oh, fucking Tank.
Like.
That's just because you look like him.
Fair enough. I do look like him. That's so funny. Dude, there's this guy. What's his name?
I will say this.
One of the strongest men guys that I look a lot like. I can't remember his name for the love of me right now.
Eddie Hall? You look a lot like Eddie Hall.
Well, no, but he's...
Yeah, you look a lot like Eddie Hall.
It's the other guy with the bigger beard, curly hair.
I don't know him.
Strong and pretty. Yeah. Strong and pretty is his motto.
He was on Joe Rogan's show. I know who you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He is, but obviously he's... in shape.
He's in A shape.
True. But he can throw this house 5 feet at least. That's funny. But yeah, but I trying to think of who else. Hoist was fighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a Bolander that trained with
is it Jerry Bolander?
Maybe that fought under was it Ken
Shamrock?
Yeah, Ken Shamrock.
The Lion's Den. I think it is Jerry Bolander.
Yes, that's who it is. So that was like, I don't know what, late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, that was the very early days.
Very
of
early days of
American MMA for sure.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even get introduced to it until 2005. The Tim Sylvia versus Randy Couture fight is the first one that I watched.
I was still watching kind of in those years. I just I just doing other stuff and lost interest with. I don't know. You get busy and some of those things, I guess, kind of fall in the cracks. And a lot it's not something I'm actively doing.
A lot of the fights happen on
too.
Saturday nights, and that's your busiest night for shows. It's kind of hard to.
But I used to really get into it. And occasionally I'll watch a fight. I have a couple friends that are still really into it, and I think it's crazy impressive the level that those guys get, the men and women that just the level they get to. You're just like, wow.
Have you watched any of the striking of like Israel Adesanya?
Mm-mm.
Man, So I'm not a striking guy. Like I do jiu-jitsu, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, I got these fucking short arms like
T-Rex.
I could barely hit myself, you know. But Adesanya's striking, to me, is like it's obviously art. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just there's no question.
It's like dance.
Yeah.
You're just like, what?
That's amazing. Well, to kind of wrap up, we've talked about the idea of intentional repetition.
Yeah.
We've talked about the idea of, we practice as we play, or we
Yeah.
train as we fight.
Yeah.
Depending upon your way of looking at it, is it more combative? Is it more competitive? It doesn't matter. Practice and the way that you act outside of practice in an actual scenario are similar because of the muscle memory. We've talked about the idea of setting realistic standards and just continuously upping those standards a little bit over time, you know, and then not measuring yourself against others.
Work ethic.
And obviously
really digging deep.
Put in the
intestinal fortitude.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Can you dig deep to make
and that's hard, especially
make it work for you.
That's hard, you know, for my old rollers, including myself. We got occupations, careers. We got
but that
families.
work ethic's relative to who you are and what you do, I think.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, like, we have, like we were saying about efficiency with your
Photoshop.
Yeah, Photoshop stuff. We have to be efficient too.
Yeah.
So
because it's scheduling.
To give an idea, this podcast could only happen tonight after 8:30 p.m. because that's when I put my daughter.
And I rescheduled because I had to do something last night.
and that's totally okay. We're still gonna work
because we got we got stuff we had to do.
So efficiency and not just efficiency in terms of like making efficient choices or whatever, but looking at it from a systematic approach and saying, you know, I'm working within Photoshop, which obviously is, you know, can help my efficiency. But if I don't study Photoshop well enough to take advantage of it, then it actually might slow me down.
Yeah, I'm just
might be
trying
better
to
off.
learn out on the go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hunting and clicking as opposed to.
Yeah.
So, first off, you know, like, thanks for your work on the logo. I think the logo is like, I just look at it sometimes. I'm like, that's so gorgeous.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you're happy with it.
Like, it's so perfect.
I had fun doing it. It was
cool. Even the color. I don't know where you picked yellow, but I was like, it makes sense.
Yellow and black are two most not pleasing but readable colors combinations.
Okay.
So when you see it, it's going to stand out one, and you're going to be able to easily figure out the black against yellow. You're going to figure out what it is.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense to me. I don't know what the fuck you just said, but it sounded like
just take it as disrespect.
Exactly. I just sound like you was disrespect.
I don't know. It sounds like disrespect.
So if any of my old rollers are interested in some of your artwork or some of your music, what would be some ways to get access to you? Either Eric Bolander, the songwriter, or Eric Bolander, the professional artist.
So, music at ericbolander.com. It's easy. I've got all my social links. You can find my email, my manager's email, like all that kind of stuff. Anything on there, just a matter of clicking through. And
if you're into really shitty hipster folk, then this is his guy.
If you like Celine Dion, you're gonna love what I put out.
If you take metal and shit,
put it on the Titanic and sink it. That's it. And then art-wise, you know, you can really just use that same email. But I have a Facebook page, Artworks by Eric Bolander.
Okay.
That has a lot of my graphic design stuff, some old stuff I did in my grad school, and some things like that. So
and obviously our logo, and I think in the future, if we get the opportunity, I got a couple of other things in mind that I'd like to do. Some maybe rash guard and/or gi design.
Oh, okay.
Especially there's a rash guard that I got in my head that I'm going to try and flesh out. We got to build the network a little bit so I can have some people who might be interested in it. But if nothing
get
else,
some merch
I'll
eventually.
support it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time and your insight and passing along your experience as a non-martial artist.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's been a cool interview.
But you were in the military, which is in a martial activity, and that's
Yeah.
So
I mean, we totally did.
I knew that
some
there was a
hand-to-hand
whole lot
combat
of
stuff,
yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure.
I knew
Yeah.
there was a whole lot of interplay between the
Yeah.
art and the martial side,
Yeah.
and so it was fun to hear your perspective on it as someone who's been down both of those roads
Yeah.
to a very high level. So really really happy that we got to have this talk, and I like I said, I can't thank you enough for being willing to do it.
Thanks, man. Take it easy. Sorry, I kept swinging.